And now, the conclusion.
Sledge's muscle, besides his own of course, was Fury, a lion-themed creature who lived up to his name. Fury was a very simple character, basically said right there in his name, but to me was a pretty cool one. There was a point early on where Fury got a little bit ambivalent about continuing to serve Sledge versus going out on his own, but in the end, Fury just served whoever was in control. He developed something of a rivalry with Ivan since the two had fought over the gold energem, and in his own way, he kind of felt like Ivan had stolen it from him. It gave the two some pretty good one-on-one fight scenes. Really, the Gold Ranger arc was where Fury shined the brightest. After that, he was kind of just there for a while. In fact, he'd just disappear for long stretches. He came back a little bit for a rivalry with Singe, but in the end, he was literally left just holding a bomb and exploded. The brains of the outfit was Wrench, an android that looked kind of like a crying set of armor. Wrench had a really good, well-established character, being cowardly and somewhat uncertain, but being really smart with the technology and making things work. Most of what the villains in charge were able to do was thanks to Wrench, developing weapons, keeping the ship working, just doing whatever had to be done. Singe was a late-arriving supercharged villain who had a very fun personality, actually, being very fed up and resentful of everything. He also might be Dino Charge's best-looking villain, a fire demon with kind of candles and wax all over him. He had a very short-lived rivalry with Fury and basically stepped into Fury's role for a while. In the end, Singe was there to be the Fury to Lord Arcanon's Sledge. Oh, and he had a spaceship made by the Spaceship Earth Corporation. Speaking of Arcanon, man, this character list is pretty segue, huh? Wasted potential. Arcanon shows up and should have been the big boss man. He's the one who hired Sledge. He had more resources than Sledge, he had more space bullion than Sledge, and he should have had more power than Sledge. You don't hire someone that you can't just fire without consequences. Arcanon shows up, pushes Heckle and Snide out of power, does the same things they did for a couple of weeks, using up very little Sentai footage actually. Then Sledge comes back and Arcanon and Singe are taken out in one blow. Wasted potential. And that leads us to one of the best performances and one of the most interesting characters in Dino Charge and Dino Supercharge, Heckle and Snide. Ryan Carter is the acting MVP of this series, as Heckle was great from start to finish. He wasn't really consistently written, especially since they threw a pretty major shift into his character, but whatever he was given for Heckle, Carter performed excellently throughout. Heckle was a fantastic villain at first, being devious, mischievous, and cunning. He also had something of a psychotic side to him, seeming very sweet at first, but then flipping over to terribly evil. He pretended to be good for a while, working his way into the Rangers' good graces and infiltrating their group, but he's actually very quickly caught, more quickly than I think most of us were expecting, and he just kind of gives up on that idea, just taking Sledge's place for a while. Near the end of Dino Supercharge, we learned that Heckle had been protecting the Dark Energem on Sentai 6, touching it when Arcanon attacked and gaining the evil other half Snide as a result. Everything that Heckle had done, even trying to destroy the Rangers and take their Energems, was in the effort to try to rebuild his home of Sentai 6. After he's separated from Snide, Heckle is neutral for a little bit before just deciding to be good very quickly and helping the Rangers destroy his evil other half and even to defeat Sledge, before Keeper names him the Keeper of the Dark Energem. Speaking of Snide, he might just be my favorite Dino Charge bad guy. There was just a certain earnestness about him. Snide knew exactly what he wanted, and often he would just go get it. He was a bad guy that would actually get up and get involved, getting in battles against the Rangers. To me, the worst thing about Snide is how he went out. In Edge of Extinction, Snide learns of Sledge's plans to ditch him, and does next to nothing with that information. He complains a little when Sledge sends him to Earth as part of the betrayal, but goes anyway. Yes, he takes the Dark Energem from Sledge, but as it turns out, that didn't help him much. And then, in his final moment, facing all of the Rangers, Heckle, and the Ultrazord, he just barks at them a little, doesn't attack, doesn't run, and just gets blasted. Man, Fury and Snide, my two favorite villains from this season, and they both got terrible anticlimactic endings. What you gonna do? Alrighty, boys and girls, it's time to do some math. Let's take a look at these two seasons' scores and draw some conclusions from them. These numbers are based on my personal episode scores, so they only reflect my own opinions. That seemingly unnecessary, but apparently not so much disclaimer aside, they also reflect a lot of what I've been seeing other people saying. So I'm not crazy. Or rather, the following conclusions are not proof of that insanity. Dino Charge was a fantastic season of Power Rangers, constantly garnering high scores. Dino Charge finished with an average score of 4.09 out of 5, which gets it a nice B at 81%. The line graph is nice and flat here, with strong scores from start to finish. The best episode of Dino Charge, really of both seasons actually, was episode 7, Let Sleeping Zords Lie. I just loved that not only was it a strong episode with a good Find the Zord plot, but just especially how it let the female characters Shelby and Kendall really shine with their own personalities and motivations. The worst episode of Dino Charge, and this time only this season, there's worse coming, is episode 12, Night After Nights. I hated how obvious it was that Ivan had caught the Rangers right after a monster attack changed them, and his ragtag band of knights was not funny in the slightest. The numbers tell a different story as we head over to Supercharge. You can see that Supercharge started out pretty strong, but definitely went downhill, especially after the hiatus. The scores are all over the place, reflecting a lack of consistency in the writing, and definitely decline as things go on, plowing into the ground with Here Comes Heximus's 0 out of 5. 2 episodes of Supercharge tied for the best, perfect 5 out of 5s. Episode 5, Roar of the Red Ranger, and Episode 10, Gone Fishin'. Both of them are quite similar, the Rangers dealing with an issue to add a new type of weapon to their arsenal. I think the family moments between James and Tyler give Roar of the Red Ranger a slight edge. The worst episode is no mystery. I just reviewed it and actually just mentioned it. Episode 22, Here Comes Heximus, was a boring Christmas clip show that added nothing to the series and just ignored the events of End of Extinction to use a bunch of tools that shouldn't have existed. Somehow both infuriating and boring. Supercharge finished with an average episode score of 2.97 out of 5, just under a 3, not as bad as you might have thought. I was a little generous with its letter grade, rounding its percentage up slightly to 60% to be able to give it a D. I don't think that it was a season worthy of receiving an F grade, but it could have been a lot better. I wanted to wrap up video by talking a little bit about what I think the best thing and worst thing was about each of these seasons. To me, the best thing about Dino Charge and Super was the increased use of original footage, though actually I do think it hamstrung the season in certain areas. If you look at these two seasons, it seems like it has a lot of really good episodes and a lot of really bad episodes, which almost makes it seem like certain episodes had a higher production budget than others. But in the end, it's always great to see Power Rangers step outside of the story of the Sentai and use original footage to craft the story that the writers actually want to tell. To me, the worst thing about these seasons are the things that weren't done, the things that they didn't manage to include. It feels like these seasons could have been even better with just a little more bravery and a touch more effort. Of course, all of us that watched Kyoryuger and learned about the Morpher toy were eagerly awaiting the arrival of the Talon Ranger, someone that it turned out was never intended to be in the show from the beginning. In case you guys missed me saying this before, Yoshi Sudarso, who played Koda, was on an episode of Ranger Wrap-Up and said that the name Talon Ranger was actually the original name for the Silver Ranger. It was never intended to be used for Death Ryuger. We did get a taste of an evil Dino Charge Ranger when Doomwing was the Silver Ranger, but I just think there was a storyline there begging to be written where Heckle became the Talon Ranger, both early on using the powers for evil and then later joining the team as a good ranger. And of course, as we all know, there was the 3-team Dino team-up that we had in the Sentai that we didn't end up getting on Dino Charge. I understand that there could have been some issues there, especially with the way the Dino Supercharge ended, and trust me, especially even after just writing quick character summaries for 20 different characters, I can understand some hesitation at not wanting to add more. The problem is, when these seasons, especially Supercharge, had as much one-off episode filler as they did, that really just comes off as an excuse. I mean, heck, there was a Supercharge episode that was focused on one of Ivan's descendants, and the character was played by Davi Santos himself, not even a guest. There was plenty of room to work this footage in. I understand that it would have clashed with the decision to save the dinosaurs as the ending of the series, but to be perfectly honest with you, I would have rather seen the team up than that kind of ending. So to me, the worst thing about these 2 seasons was what might have been. Well, that puts a neat bow on the 2 Dino Charge seasons. We are ready in just over a month to leap into Power Rangers Ninja Steel. However, next week, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. So we're going to head right over there, right where I'm pointing, to the big blue chair, have a nice mug of hot chocolate on hand, and take a look at how Power Rangers has dealt with Christmas over the years. From Alpha's magical Christmas to Heximus's most definitively unmagical Christmas. That is going to wrap up this first Power Rangers 2016 off-season video, and I thank you guys so much for watching. I want to take a second to say that I really appreciate your views even more in the off-season and the hiatus, because there's not a new episode that you want to find out what reviewers like me thought about. These are just conversational, topical videos, so really, thank you for taking a second out of your day to watch. Make sure to click the like button right down below to let me know that you liked this video. Leave your comments on these 2 seasons as a whole and what you think about this wrap-up in the comments down below. And subscribe to the channel for all of the Weekly Geekly. Also make sure to ring that bell to make sure you're getting your notifications. And if you happen to have a couple of dollars lying around you don't have anything else to do with, you can head over to my YouTube channel page and click that blue support button, and I would very much appreciate it. Until next week, heroes, may the power protect you. After that, he's kind of just there for a while. In fact, there's long stretches where he's not even there. He pops back. In fact, he disappears for pretty long stretches. He pops back up a little bit for that fury with Sin. He developed something of a rivalry with Ivan since they had fought over the gold energem, and in his own way, he felt like Ivan had Singe was a late arriving Supercharge villain. Really? Heckle was a wonderful villain at first, being devious, mischievous, and cunning. Until next week, Ranger fans, heroes, hearts. I don't call them Rangers or Ranger fans. I call them heroes because